So, episode 3
Yep.
the Deus Ex Cinema podcast reviewing Dune. This is Aaron. We have Soraya and Marty here as well. And this was Marty's choice for movie.
Yeah, I was the one that bestowed this burden upon us.
You had a very different tone about the movie before we watched.
Well, I swear to God, when I first watched it, it was a different movie than this. I'm pretty sure it changed. Because there's a lot of scenes that I remembered being in there that weren't in here.
So, before we get into first reactions, do you want to just do an introduction of the movie?
I don't know how. It's like if... I don't know. It's just the most sci-fi movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, it has all the cliches of every sci-fi movie.
Even
from
more than Avatar?
We don't talk about Avatar.
Papyrus!
Alright, so I guess first, should we just go around, non-spoiler, general thoughts and impressions? Marty, it's your movie if you'd like to go first.
Well, I still think it's entertaining. You know, it's still like a good movie, I think. And maybe if you read the books, it would be a lot better, so you could actually understand what the fuck's going on. I wouldn't recommend it for just someone that's not watching it without reading the books, though, because you really don't know anything.
Yeah.
Like the space worm guy, I don't know.
Space worm guy.
You know, but no, I mean, it's still like, it's a fun movie to watch. It looks, it's entertaining to like just see all the scenes and all that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think it's a good movie, even if it's confusing as fuck. But I think that's part of the charm, though, because it really is trying to like hint at like a bigger universe.
Yeah.
Than just like here's a plot line.
Yeah.
You know.
Soraya, your initial thoughts of Dune?
I liked it a good, maybe 45 minutes in, and then it lost me completely.
So a little under halfway. and then
it just took, a complete 180, and then I'm lost for the rest of the movie.
Which, to be fair, I think a lot of David Lynch movies tend to do that. Not even, just with you specifically.
What movies have we seen of David Lynch?
Well, I don't know what you've seen, but I've seen Mulholland Drive.
Haven't seen.
Did he do Blue Velvet?
Did not see.
I think. Here, let me look it up real quick.
I only know Twin
right
Peaks.
God, I fucking hate Twin Peaks.
I liked Twin Peaks for a little bit. Like the first 2 or 3 episodes that we watched.
Yeah, so Mulholland Drive, Blue Velvet, Eraserhead, which I have not seen. Inland Empire, Lost Highway, The Elephant Man, Dune, The Straight Theory, Lucky, Rabbits. I like Rabbits. Rabbits is good. It's really fucking weird. Anyways, though.
Yeah.
So I lost you 45 minutes in through the 2 hour and 17-minute movie?
Yes, it did.
Well, I think that's when most of the plots that the exposition was leading up to started to actually happen, and like I said, I think if you would have read the books, maybe you would have understood the exposition enough to understand.
Probably.
Also, the fact that there was a multi-year time lapse that they didn't really hint at all.
Ugh.
Jesus Christ, he's been married 4 times. And 2 of them are named Mary. Anyways. I guess for me, yeah, like Marty said, I think I'm the only one out of the 3 of us that read the book. At least the first one. Not a David Lynch fan. By any stretch of the imagination, really. I thought it was... I'm kind of with Soraya. I thought the beginning was okay. If a little rocky in some parts.
Yes.
But once House Atreides fell, I thought it was really bad.
Yeah.
It's still enjoyable, like you said, but not always in the way the movie intended.
Right. I mean, honestly, it's a 2-hour movie, but if they could have honestly added an extra hour and a half or 2 hours to maybe split it up into 2 parts or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it would have really helped, because that way they could actually explain what's happening without just showing it.
Yeah. So I guess before we get into spoilers, should we just communally say whether or not you'd recommend the movie? I know Marty already said only if you've read the book.
Or you have, just read a synopsis or something first. Just going into it with a little bit of, an idea of what's happening kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah. Sure.
Part of me wants to be cruel and just be like, yes, see it.
Yeah.
Just out of the blue, like I did. And then part of me is also along Marty's lines, where it's you should probably look at something for it before you watch it, just to get a good feel.
Yeah. I think for me, I would say it's best to not know anything about it and then just have a group of people like we had and then sit down and watch it. Because it's a wild fucking ride then. It's not going to make sense, but I think it's almost better if it doesn't make sense.
I mean, you were making fun of my faces throughout the entire movie.
Well, I don't know. I think it is one of those things. Like, if you're into sci-fi movies, like, you kind of have to see Dune because it is one of the, I think, like the founding fathers of that genre.
Yeah.
And it is well made. Mm-hmm. Like technically, it's very well put together, like every David Lynch movie. But I guess we can go full spoilers now. So one of the weird things that I had was I really, especially at the beginning, hated all the narration and the exposition.
I also hated that.
It was really fucking lazy.
I like how then. Oh wait, I forgot.
that was the best part. Was the princess fading in front of stars, fading out, fading back in, fading back out, fading back in, saying she forgot something, and then fading out again, and then it goes from there to having Paul with like a program that's telling him about the planets that just repeats exactly what the princess said.
Well, it was like the intro narration with the princess. It's the fact that they had to write that in.
Yeah.
For her. Okay, it's like, I got this idea. She's going to tell everyone what's happening and then fade out. They're going to be like, all right, yeah, let's get on with the story. Going to get into our first scene. Then all of a sudden she comes back and she's like, wait, I forgot to tell you this one part. And then she tells you and then disappears. Like,
yeah.
That was intentional. That wasn't like,
That is not a mistake.
Yeah, and it was just so... The exposition, whenever it came in, was so fucking heavy-handed and just, like, really terribly written. Where it was like... And then they fell in love, and there's, like, a fade-in of them kissing, and then they just fade out.
So, all right, well, that happened. Well, and that's the thing, like, they tried to condense it so much. It's like, that's the only way they could get the point across, is just to tell us.
Well, and there's no, like... There's no show, and it's all just tell.
Yeah.
It's all just, like, this is what's happening, rather than... just slowly introducing you to the world and letting you kind of pick it up as you go.
Right.
And then, especially, that problem also, for me, goes into how much there is of people saying their thoughts. Mm-hmm. Which I kind of liked at first, especially because a lot of the book is very mental focused, like a lot of books. Mm-hmm. But it was just too much. There was so much of it.
That and the fact that, like, there was, like, telepathy and shit in there.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, is he projecting his thoughts to somebody, or is it just internal monologue?
Yeah.
Like, it's not very clear.
When I thought, too, and this might just be part of my dislike for David Lynch in general, but, like, I don't think David Lynch is a good character director. Mm-hmm. Especially, like, in Twin Peaks. Nobody in his movies acts well. Like, they're all either passing to terrible. And in this one, it almost felt like he was trying to substitute in just saying their thoughts instead of them acting their thoughts. Right. Especially like when Paul goes through the trial with the Jean Bezeret Reverend Mother with his hand in the box. And then his mom comes in and answers thoughts and she's like, my son is dead. Or is alive. Is not dead or whatever. And her face is just like a stone statue. Like, it has no emotion whatsoever.
Right. I mean, honestly, it's like, why even bother with the inner monologue in that particular scene? It's
right. It's like they just filmed her walking into the room, and then he was like, oh, we can just narrate her emotion for this scene, and then we're fine. I guess that's right. One thing I wanted to ask you was being the only person completely unexposed to Dune, minus the little bits I told you about when I read the book.
Which I don't remember.
Yeah. What did you think about it? Like, what did you think of the story? And how it introduced you to this new world you knew nothing about?
I didn't even really feel like it had a story. It was just a whole bunch of plots thrown together.
Yeah.
At least I thought. Because, like, you got the whole... I have no idea what the fuck happened in the beginning where, like, whatever the fuck his name is, the McLaughlin dude, Twin Peaks guy.
Yeah.
And
Muad'Dib.
he's like, worried about his dad,
Mm-hmm.
and like his dad, like I could barely hear what his dad was saying. When they were talking on like the balcony looking at the ocean.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea what the fuck was going on there.
So if you had to summarize the plot of this movie, what would you say happened?
He controls the worms. The worms control the spice. Spice controls everything. No, but really, it's I guess it would basically just be greed, because you got the Emperor, who like I don't even know what the fuck his entire role in this was, but like,
so you're talking
so he wants to
thematically. You think the movie's about greed?
yes, because like the Emperor wants to control the spice, right? That's
Yes.
why he has the H word.
HeartConan.
The HeartConan.
Harkonnens attack the RD.
The Atreides.
Atreides.
Well, yeah, because I mean, he basically explained it in the beginning. He's gonna have the Atreides go there, and like, because they're in control of it right now, and he set up the whole plot so the Harkonnens would go in there and take it, which
Yeah.
would give him, and then he could take it from them basically.
Yeah.
So I mean, like he explained it all with that worm thing.
It's so early, and there's so many words that
Yeah.
you don't know yet that it's really hard to follow it.
Right.
But you were starting to get into the thematics of the movie. I was more asking, like, narratively. What do you think? So the Atreides go to Arrakis to control the spice, so that then the Harkonnens can usurp them and control it for the Emperor. Because the Emperor doesn't like the Atreides because they are too honorable and they threaten his power. And then the Harkonnens betray the Atreides get betrayed. They're all dead. Paul gets out. What happens from that point? Do you think? Because I think that's when the movie really went off the rails and was hard to follow. So I'm just curious how much came across.
So Paul and his mom escape. They crash, and they try to like outmaneuver a fucking worm with a thumper.
Yes.
And they run into the tribe that one old dude with the suit.
Yep.
They run into them.
The still suit.
The still suit.
The Freeman.
Okay.
That's what they're called.
Okay, yeah. Whatever they're called. They're people in suits.
Yeah, yep. People in
living
suits.
in the deserts.
3-piece suits.
And then they have that conversation where it's like, we'll spare your life if you teach us the wielding way.
The weirding way.
Weirding
Yes,
way.
the weirding way. The weirding way of combat. Which is going, hey, yeah, every time you shoot a bullet.
And then they like make the mom drink the water,
Yeah, the water of life.
and she like becomes bald
She becomes Tilda Swinton.
and like gives birth prematurely, like way prematurely. Like
Yeah.
this baby's not even fucking. She's not even a bump yet. This baby.
Yeah.
But somehow the baby is okay.
Yep.
And then I don't even know now.
This is a fantastic
I'm
breakdown.
lost. I'm lost now. I'm lost in my own thoughts trying to explain this fucking what's happening. So then she gives birth to the baby, and then it just cuts to Paul telling them what learning of the weirding.
The weirding way?
The weirding way is with a fucking obelisk.
Yes. Which the weirding way is the Bean Gesserit way. It's just, that's what the Freemen call it instead of Bean Gesserit. They call it the weirding way.
Oh. Okay.
And the Bean Gesserit way is like...
Using your thoughts.
Yeah. It's
Powerful
like,
words.
yeah, and it's a whole religion cult kind of thing of all females. And that's like the voice where they can control people. With like it does that weird sort of voice layering.
It's like the Thum.
Yeah. They all just play a lot of Skyrim. They get really good at Thum. That was a pretty good summary, though. You were
that's
getting
not
there.
even like half. That's like half the movie. There's still a whole other half.
Well, we won't make you suffer through trying to explain it.
Because that's the issue. Because like it's all about the whole second half of the movie is about the prophecy basically coming true.
Yes.
But they don't really explain what the prophecy is.
They never say the prophecy.
Yeah.
Ever.
So,
they just have...
The prophecy is just that the one would bear the one who would control everything.
Well, it's about like, Paul and his sister.
Yeah.
Basically causing the Jihad, which was just the clash between the two houses, basically. And that's pretty much all they tell you. That's all you can really surmise from what they tell you. That's it.
Yeah, so. There's no point where they lay it out, like, at the beginning of the movie, where they're like, all right, the prophecy is that this type of person comes and does this, and that's how we know that they're going to be able to do this. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no, he'll be an off-world guy that has control of the voice, and then he can ride the biggest worm, and, like, there's no setups. They just have people react as the prophecy is fulfilled without telling you how the prophecy is being fulfilled.
Because like there'll be a scene and and then someone will be like, it's just like the prophecy.
Yeah, but you never know what the fuck the prophecy is. Which I think one of the big issues I had with the structure of this movie, which just, right off the bat, I think it's going to be impossible for me to talk about this without talking about the Denis Villeneuve one coming up, at least a little bit. And I think the way that he's going about it is much smarter of dividing it into two movies. Mm-hmm. So I think you could easily divide this up into the first movie of Paul and the Atreides going to Arrakis, and then the climax of that movie being the Harkonians killing them.
Right.
And then the second movie being Paul's revenge.
Right. Make it like the next Marvel series, There's always like a lead up into the next one. But yeah.
Except better.
Well, because I feel like that's really the thing. Because I would be 100% willing to watch a slow 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
That's just basically exposition for the rest of the story. Because, I feel like it's an intricate world they kind of created, but they don't let you get it too deep into it.
Yeah. And I think the big reason and the problem with the story in this one especially is that they have a lot of payoffs, but none of the setup. Because they don't have time to set things up.
Right.
So, like, all the stuff of, the Atreides knowing that it is a trap. You don't see them do anything to try and prevent the trap. You don't really get much of an introduction to Dr. Yue before he betrays them.
Right.
There's this whole subplot in the book of how guilty he feels about it and him debating whether or not to do it. And there's all these, political elements of Duke Leto, trying to get an alliance with the Freemen and trying to figure out how the Harkonians are going to do it. And there's all these layers to it. But in this one, they, show up. They stop the worm from eating or they save the people on the spice mining mission, which is how he gains their trust, and then they're all just dead. And you don't know, you don't even know who Patrick Stewart really is. You don't, fucking Patrick Stewart. You don't know any of the supporting people. It's just, it goes so fast, but then they still want the big moments of oh my god, Yue betrayed him, but he has Imperial conditioning. But you don't know what the fuck Imperial conditioning is because they didn't set it up.
Well, I feel like they didn't get nearly deep enough into Yue's character. Because, okay, so they got, did something to his wife. They killed her, fucked with her, whatever. And so you're like, okay, I guess I can sort of pretend like I care about him and his motivations. But they didn't do enough to really make you sympathize with why he betrayed everybody,
And then it really ruins that interesting fold in it, too, of having him betray the Atreides, but still then help him try to kill the Harkonnens.
Right.
Where there's, that sort of interesting element that you don't usually get.
That was a really, I think, could have been a really powerful moment.
Yeah.
Because at first you're like, okay, is it definitely just a traitor, just a bad guy? And then that second you're like, wait, okay. He's actually, trying to kill the Baron and all that.
Yeah.
And you get, maybe 30 seconds of screen time in that, and then the next time you see him, he's caught and they kill him.
Yeah. Or even when they do take out the Atreides, it really stuck out to me how you go from Dr. Yue having Jessica and Paul, or having Duke Leto, And then all of a sudden, Jessica and Paul are captured too. You never see how.
Right.
You never see what happened. Like once Atreides starts getting killed, it's like the big plot points just happen, and there's no explanation or lead up to any of them.
Right. It's like you just kind of have to like take 10 seconds to catch up and be like, okay, I guess this is where we are now. It's like It's like, you're watching a TV series and you miss an episode, you just try and pick it all up in the next one.
Except it's that every 10 minutes for an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how useless that princess was?
The narrator princess?
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you want to say about
Well, I
it?
mean, they have her be the narrator, and then she's just like a small side character. You would think that if she was like the narrator, she would be a little bit more important.
Like they would try and show like the story that from her perspective a little bit,
Yeah, but they do absolutely nothing with her. And I thought, maybe she would leave her emperor father and like become rebel and help them.
Yeah.
But it does nothing, and I was greatly disappointed.
Well, and she's not even... I don't think she's even in the movie except for the narration at all.
Well, she's
in the movie.
She's just standing there.
Yeah, like, okay.
But,
Yeah.
Or at the beginning, when the people with the weird fucking booger thing.
Yeah.
And she's
Weird
like...
booger thing.
Well, it looks like a booger. Like a fleshy booger. And go on our subreddit boogers. And you'll understand what I mean. But, like, she's walking towards her father. She stops, and her dad's like, "You must leave." She just entered the scene! And you're gonna tell him to leave right away?
Yeah.
So she just fucking walks off.
Yeah, I think it would have been kind of an interesting twist having her because of her perspective in the story and, like, her position, to have the narration from that perspective where she doesn't really know what's happening with all this other stuff. She can only see it from the Emperor's perspective, basically.
Yeah.
Which I think would have been a lot more intricate and interesting, but no, she's just all-knowing.
Yeah.
Is she a thing in the book?
Yes.
Is she bigger in the book? Does she have
Well,
a
so
bigger role?
in the book, every chapter starts off with excerpts from religious texts that are written after the book about Muad'Dib. Because he starts like a whole religion from this holy war. And because in the book, like at the end of this movie, he kills the Baron and the Emperor. In the book, he only kills the Baron. The Emperor gets away. And so then the
he doesn't
greater
kill the
Jihad... Huh?
He kills the Emperor in this? Did
Yeah,
I look away
didn't
for a
he?
second? I don't think so.
Well, because he killed the son, and then the Emperor was just gone.
Yeah.
So I just kind of assumed... And they had him like in the cloak and the crown.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Like they didn't show him, set him free or anything, I guess.
I don't know. Another
Yeah,
plot
I don't
hole.
Yeah, right. But so like in the book, the greater Jihad is that the Freemen are going to take over the entire universe. Like that's their end goal. Is not to just take Iraq, it's take everything. And so in the book, the daughter narrator is the one who has written all the religious texts about Muad'Dib. So you never actually see her in the book. You just read religious texts that she has written about Muad'Dib.
Now, here's my other problem. Where is all this, like, jihad holy war shit coming in?
Yeah, that's in the book, not really in the movie at all. Because in the book, it takes a much harder lean into the Bene Gesserit way being a religion. Like a very cultish religion. And so when he goes and shows the Freemen the weirding way, he's converting them to his religion. And
So
he
he's
makes his
basically
own religion.
Jesus.
Kind of, yeah. He's like an allegory, sort of, for like Jesus taking all these savages and then taking them on a crusade across the universe. But they didn't really do that in the movie. They just dropped the word jihad and then that's it.
They,
Like, none of this is, like, religious.
Yeah,
to me.
because they end up seeing him as a prophet because when he takes spice, he can see the future. And that's how he leads them. That was like all the really weird visuals, like when he ate the spice stick and when he drank the water of life. That's him seeing the future and all possible timelines that could happen and all previous possible timelines behind him.
the movie just doesn't show like the scale of what's actually happening. They make it seem like a real localized, like, here's a bunch of, here's like a small group of underdogs that are just gonna go take down the bad guys.
Yeah.
When like
This
it
is
might
like
not even be the good guys or
Yeah.
the bad guys. They're just
And
Yeah.
it's really like a giant universal event happening.
And especially because if they have the spice, then, they can bend, like, the fabric of space and time and all that shit.
Yeah.
So.
Which is pretty important.
Because spice controls everything.
Including the giant worm. Including the Alaskan
What is their
bullworm.
connection, Aaron?
I would have pissed myself if the fucking Alaskan bullworm was just sitting there, just...
you see Patrick in the bottom pushing the bikini bottom.
Let's just take all the spice and push it somewhere else.
I think the other thing then that I'd like to get into while we're talking about the worms is probably the best part of the movie, the effects, I thought.
Yeah.
It's a really fucking good looking movie.
Yeah,
For the most part.
That's one of the things I noticed, too, is, like, every scene was so intricate.
Yeah.
Like, they had so much stuff in the background, people doing shit, and, like, even if it was, like, mindless, they're just fucking with a knob.
Yeah.
Like, they spent so much time putting detail into every single scene.
Yeah.
That I thought it
I
was...
feel like if they spent so much time that it took away from everything else.
Yeah.
I thought.
There's only two parts of, I guess, like the design of the movie that I disliked. One being the shields,
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
what the fuck was that?
which I get. It's old, but it was really distracting, especially when they were fighting. Like, you could not see what the fuck was going on.
no, it was just, like, these, like, blocks.
Like these mirror delayed images doing shit, and it made no fucking. It was like a Minecraft fan animation.
You know what their shields reminded me of? You know in Superman where he locks or at least the Family Guy Superman where he locks the people in the mirror?
Yeah.
They're floating through space?
Where he throws his cellophane Superman stuff
Yeah.
from. Is that Superman 3? I think Superman 3 or 4. Yeah, I could see that. And then the other thing of the effects that I didn't really like was the design of the HeartConans, and especially the HeartConan planet. Like when you first get introduced to the Baron HeartConan, that set that they're in, where it's all like green, and there's no ceiling to it, just looks super fucking fake to me.
I have no idea what scene you're talking about.
When like they're like injecting the shit out of him, and then there's like the boy that he pulls the heart valve out of, like that whole environment just didn't feel like an environment people actually lived in to me. It almost felt more like a set on a stage play,
Right.
rather than like an actual building where people live.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I did like about the HeartConans is how, they're supposed to be, like, the group with the power, right?
Yeah,
And I guess I like the contrast for, like, on Arrakis, there's no water, everything's dry, they're desperate for every drop they get, they have to save it. But, the HeartConans have such an excess, they're always wet, there's always steam, everything's,
yeah,
it's like, there's such an excess of it that it's just kind of like, it's almost to the point of being disgusting,
yeah. I'd say it's past that point.
But you know what I mean? Like, the whole point was just this stark contrast between, the overconsumption, I guess, of the HeartConans versus, Arrakis and all of them.
Especially with how like a good chunk of the HeartConans are very overweight, and none of the Freemen are. Nobody on Arrakis is.
Right. I mean, it's really just like a blatant, description of just the power imbalance.
Yeah, definitely.
Which
See? Green.
Which, I mean, it's like, yeah, I get they're trying to be like, okay, yeah, they're disgusting, so they're the bad guys. But, I mean, I do like the kind of way they used water to show the power struggles.
And there was a lot of nice detail there. It was just, they were almost too cartoonish for me.
Yeah, we were talking about Mystery Science Theater a little bit, and a lot of their sets kind of seemed like Mystery Science Theater sets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where they're really, like, two-dimensional. They're not really lit in an interesting or realistic way.
Yeah.
God, all the HeartConans are just awful fucking actors. Like, especially the... we'll get to Sting. I have some stuff to say about Sting. But especially the Beast... Rodon or whatever his name, the guy who gets put in power.
Yeah, the fat dude.
Yeah, which is a subplot that they really blow past of why he's getting put in power. I thought.
Tears apart cow hooves. To
Yeah.
shit.
Well, because the whole idea there is that the Baron is placing him in power, so it's that he could be extremely cruel to the planet, so that then he can have Sting come in and usurp him and be a hero, and then everyone will love him, and he'll get the allegiance of the planet. which they describe very briefly in that very homoerotic scene where Sting comes out of the steamer.
Yeah, and basically, like, at that point, the movie just makes it seem like, okay, Sting is just the bad guy.
Yeah.
That is just gonna jump in and be more of a bad guy.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't do anything.
No.
There's no reason to have Sting in this fucking movie. And
Just because it's Sting.
I guess.
Kind of like, well, maybe not. I was going to say David Bowie in
In Labyrinth?
Labyrinth.
He actually does shit in Labyrinth, though.
I think it needed to be David Bowie for Labyrinth. I mean, like,
Yeah.
all the singing parts and the theatrics, I mean, like...
I've never
very
seen
Bowie.
Labyrinth, so I just thought David Bowie was David Bowie.
Well, I'm even saying, though, like, even just as the way that character is written, he does not need to be in this movie. You could just have the guy that was placed in power come in and do the knife fight at the end. And that's the same movie.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this movie did such a shitty job of cutting down certain parts of Dune to make the story shorter and condensed into one movie, but then left in so many fucking random subplots that don't go anywhere.
Right.
Or aren't developed enough to understand to make it coherent.
Yeah, I mean, like, the Baron had that other, general guy. They didn't even really explain who he was or anything. And they made it seem like, yeah, he was in a position, like, higher position of power within the HeartConans. But, they could have used him in some kind of way, to be the one to, like, come in and, look like the good guy. Like... Or
there's the whole thing of, because they never even have Sting come in to be the good guy. So why even have that subplot in there?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Or that they capture I can't remember what his character name is, but they introduce the dude and they're like, here's the cat, you have to milk it to get the antidote, and then you never see him again.
No,
you could just kill him like you fucking killed the one dude that doesn't die.
Or just
in the book.
Just cut him out and just forget about it. Because last time you saw him in like that cell, kind of looking like he's insane.
Yeah.
Just say, okay, yeah, they did something with him. He's fucked up.
Yeah,
That's
he's done. He's gone. Who cares? There was just so many random things that they decided to leave in.
Well, especially because with them they're like, okay, no, he's a HeartConan now. Like, they could have had some like plot with him actually being one of the HeartConans or something. Yeah. But.
And then there's, because they could have taken that out and then like, because they bring Patrick Stewart back, which is a big thing in the book. But then that ends up being pointless too.
It's just he just helps ride the war.
Yeah, he's just there with a mullet, and it looks weird. And then it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't have any effect.
Well, the mullet, that was just to show the timeline change,
Show that it was a couple years without him cutting his hair. Everyone else looks exactly the same, except for Patrick Stewart.
Oh, man.
And the kid.
Well, that's the only...
And the kid.
The only thing that ages on Patrick Stewart is his hair.
And then there was also, like, the whole thing with, like, they brought in the guild. There's, like, one scene where he's, like, where he goes to the Emperor, and he's like, the guild won't stand for this. You need to get Arrakis under control. And the guild's never was introduced or brought up again. And I don't know. I feel like they really could have cut down on the number of subplots and parts of the world they introduced to really focus on the critical ones and make them make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, again, or like if they could have broken it up into a multi-part thing so they could actually like play out all the subplots properly.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they do tie in together, and I think it's kind of important for them to all tie in together to really understand the depth of the situation. But
yeah,
you can't do that in 2 hours.
Yeah, definitely not. And they they could have then like described or explained like the water of life more, so it's not just okay. Why does it matter that these people are drinking this shit?
Yeah,
what is it?
Here's this blue Gatorade.
Yeah, right. Or the or like the Freeman's plan for all the water. They're like, oh, we're gonna change Arrakis, but it's like, what do you mean? Like, what is that? What are you doing?
Yeah, and I mean, they never really did anyway. I
Yeah,
mean, they got Arrakis, but now what?
It just never comes up again. But, what else you guys got?
Well, can you look up? Can I use your phone for a second?
Yeah.
I have something I'd like to look up.
While you're looking that up, I do want to go back and talk to the action a little bit more, especially in the Harkonnen attack on the House of Atreides, and the end where it's reversed. It's the Freemen attacking the House of Harkonnen. I thought that all that action was terrible.
Yeah, it was like 5 minutes of just repeated scenes of them just shooting stuff and the worm, and then shooting stuff and then the worm, and then shooting.
And there's no reference point.
No.
Because it does a shot of the good guys shooting, a shot of bad guys getting shot. But you don't know where those bad guys were in relation to the good guys.
Yeah, you don't know where the worms are. Like, how long did it take for the worms to get to the walls? Like,
Yeah.
it's just...
And there's no development of the action scene. You know, like I think a really good movie for this kind of stuff is Lord of the Rings, right? Like the big Helm's Deep battle.
Well, yeah.
Like, you know, everything that's happening is having a consequence in the fight, and you understand what's happening even though there's way more shit on screen and
Well,
way more
because,
happening.
I mean, they show all, like, the close-up cool shots of, like, all the shooting shit, you know? But then they do show, like, macro-scale stuff of, like, the movement of the battle, like, closer in. And at least you kind of feel like you're part of it.
Yeah.
It's not just, like, okay, here's a close-up shot of 3 people shooting their gun. Oh, here's a close-up shot of 3 people getting blown up.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a close-up shot of the worm. It's...
Well, and then even, too, that Lord of the Rings does a really good job where it's like either you see the person that Legolas is killing, which I mean, obviously do with the melee, but just using Legolas as an example because he's the only ranged person. Either you see that, like, the arrow goes from his bow to the person in one shot, or he, like, shoots off-screen right, and then a dude gets killed by an arrow off-screen left.
Right.
So there's a clear zoning of where everything is. Where in this, it was like, okay, they're shooting off-screen right, and now a dude's getting shot straight chest. And it's like, that doesn't... Where is he?
Right. And I guess that kind of goes with the whole, like, 180-degree camera rule. Like, if you're showing one cohesive scene, don't, like, go from, like, okay, 90-degree perspective on whoever's shooting to a straight-on perspective of who's getting shot. Because, like...
it doesn't tell you anything.
Like, you want the viewer to pretend like they're actually... Like, feel like they're actually there. And if you're going to convey that, you have to pretend like they're in one spot, basically.
Yeah.
And this movie does none of that, ever.
I actually thought that this movie was pretty poorly shot. It was really boring cinematography-wise.
Yeah, the one scene that really stood out was in the beginning, just with the Emperor sitting on the throne, and, like, people walking around and stuff. It looked like someone just set up a fucking GoPro, and they're like, okay, here's a bunch of actors sitting on set.
Yeah.
Like, it's real, just...
Like, the camera never moves. It never changes for the energy of the scene whatsoever. There's no interesting shots, really. I mean, there's one... Like, I liked the one when Paul was going to summon the worm to ride it. Where, like, he had the thumper that he placed in.
Yeah, see, that was a good shot, because it had perspective and, like, depth to it.
And it had, like, an interesting framing and lighting to it. But other than that, it all was really fucking boring.
Well, it almost felt more like a play.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, here's a perspective. Now just watch the actors portray this story.
Yeah. It was all just really flat and just unenergetic at all.
Yeah.
Sari, did you have what you were looking up?
Maybe. So, in your guys' opinion, how big of a fan base do you think this movie has?
A big one.
Really? Is it like a cult movie, maybe?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, because that's what I was thinking. I feel this feels like it could be like a cult film, kind of like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where it's like the right kind of shitty, but it's still good to watch and like easy for audience to participate and like say things.
Because that's the big thing is, like, I think people understand that it's kind of a poorly made movie, but I think the fans are fans of the world, that they created.
Yeah.
From the books more than the movie probably, but I always hear quotes about the fucking spice and shit like that. You know what I mean? And so I've heard enough references where I'm pretty sure it's widely followed.
Okay. Okay.
I will say too. So looking at Box Office Mojo, it looks like it had an estimated budget of $40 million and a domestic total gross of $30.9 million.
So it almost made its money back.
Almost made its production money back. Yeah.
Which, I mean, and that's the one thing too. It is like a pretty early big sci-fi epic.
Yeah. And it was nominated for 1 Oscar.
Yeah, and like, people shit on Star Wars and stuff, but if you really look at like the depth of the plots, Star Wars seems like it came across as a much more clear story.
Yeah.
Because it's like typical, 80s sci-fi. That era, But that's because it had a very linear kind of storyline, like one main plot point. There wasn't a lot of background at the time, at least in the original trilogy.
Well, and the thing too with Star Wars was it's just taking a very traditional hero's journey narrative and making it sci-fi.
You know, and the plot for Dune really did not follow many like cliche type of you know, storylines. So trying to do that in a way that is like audience friendly in 2 hours is surprisingly difficult, you know. So again, I think it has a much stronger world than a lot of other sci-fi, you know, films or books.
Definitely.
Which is also its biggest weakness.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to grasp that much stuff all at once. Like, you almost have to kind of like, I think it's a series of like hour-long episodes, you know, hour and a half long episodes or whatever, would really benefit it, because that way you could kind of like work your way into the world and feel more like part of it instead of like you're just observing it.
Yeah, I think too that this movie a lot of the time sort of felt a little bit like the original Blade Runner to me. I think partially that was because of the sort of style of the special effects, where you could tell it was a lot of miniatures, a lot of dark to make it look better, and a lot of smoke to kind of hide the blemishes. But also I thought that Blade Runner did a much better way of introducing a complicated, really fleshed out sci-fi world than this one did, though. And I don't know if maybe it's just because this one was so small scale, because, you know, it's like you have a couple scenes of Atreides on their home planet, which I think is Caliban or something like that. You have like a couple scenes on the HeartConan place, but all the scenes of like the different locations really just take place in rooms.
Well, yeah.
Like there's never like a wide, like, I mean, you never know what a city on Arrakis looks like. Like they just show the outside of the palace and then the inside of it.
Right.
You never even see just a normal Iraqian. Like you see the Freeman, but you don't see like who are they actually ruling over.
Well, yeah, and even them, you know, they show all like the rooms when they're having their training montage and stuff like that. But you don't really understand like what kind of city do they live in, and make it look like they just live in caves and sleep on rocks, you know.
Because there's not even a thing where you can see like outside a window and see, oh, there's a city back there. It's just completely enclosed environments.
Which again brings me back to, it feels more like a play, where it's like, okay, here's our set, we're gonna do our scene here, and then we're gonna move on to the next set, you know.
But yeah, so this came out 2 years after Blade Runner,
which
for preparing the effects.
And that's the thing, because Blade Runner looks really damn good compared to this, honestly.
I would say Blade Runner looks better than this.
Yeah.
Which, let me look up the Blade Runner budget.
Because like Blade Runner, you know, I've watched it quite a few times, and like I never really felt like it was an old movie.
Yeah.
You know.
So the original Blade Runner's budget was also only $28 million. And
Yeah.
it looks better than this.
You know, it's got like a better story. Like, you know, you feel a lot more connected to the characters and everything.
Yeah.
You know, even the bad guys in the end have so much more character development. Like, you can actually feel sympathy for them as opposed to like these guys. Like, it was hard to feel sympathy for anything in this movie.
Well, and I think another thing too that really helps Blade Runner not only have a better story but also feel more like inviting and a little bit easier to get into, is that it again is taking a type of story that people have seen quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like it's a very basic noir detective story, just set sci-fi. Whereas this isn't like anything else.
Right.
Story-wise, at least.
Which makes it, you know, which as much as like I like having that kind of uniqueness, it makes it a lot harder to really feel attached to the characters.
Yeah.
Because like even Paul, like I can't really connect with why he acts the way he does.
Yeah.
You know.
And it doesn't explain it at all. And this is kind of a random thing, but so when I googled, or I binged, I binged the Blade Runner budget. It gave me the Blade Runner budget and then 4 suggested movie budgets, which are the original It, a movie called Soldier from 1984, Blade Runner 2049, and then the new Justice League.
What the fuck?
Which is
Thanks, Bing.
random assortment of movie budgets.
Hey, Bing is great if you're trying to find like a whole bunch of If you want to go down the rabbit hole, go to Bing. Sponsor us, Bing.
I mean, I think haven't they said that like for the past 18 months or something, the top search on Bing is Google?
Although, if you're looking for porn, Bing's your place to go.
That's what I've heard. I have heard that. So is there anything else you guys wanted to say about Dune?
No, I want to find out which one I originally watched. Because I'm remembering a lot of different scenes, but...
Let me see here. I guess one of the other things that we could maybe look at is maybe some of the other movies that came out this year. Kind of compare it to them.
Yeah, I can do that.
That'd be kind of interesting since this one's old as fuck.
And it feels very old.
Yeah.
You know?
So we did say, it came out 2 years after Blade Runner. Let's see here. So Amadeus came out the same year.
I love Amadeus.
Which definitely feels a lot better. Does not aged a lot. It aged a lot better than this movie.
Amadeus kind of feels like it could have been made in like the 2000s, honestly.
Oh yeah.
So. The original Footloose came out.
That also feels like it could have been made.
A lot of the reason for these is because it's not like sci-fi needs all the effects and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
You know.
Where was it? I saw another one here. This is Spinal Tap.
Okay, that one feels like 80s.
Yeah, that one's the original 16 Candles
Never saw
with
it.
its hero or its protagonist rape subplot.
Nice.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
That one's a good sci-fi movie. I thought that one.
Sci-fi.
Would you say Indiana Jones is sci-fi?
I have never seen a single Indiana Jones movie.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
So,
I love Indiana Jones.
I feel like that's a sci-fi.
No, it's similar like action adventure,
Okay.
maybe this is a good comparison. Or both of these. Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock, which I've never seen.
Saw.
But also Ghostbusters. Came out in 1984.
Well, I guess those are kind of two separate things. Because like Star Trek, again, it's the real sci-fi.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like it's the definition of sci-fi.
Yeah.
That does fit. That did feel old to me.
Oh yeah. I would say so.
It felt similar because the same era of effects.
Yeah.
And I think that's what dates it. What was the second movie you said?
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters. That had the effects too, but that was kind of a campy comedy.
Yeah.
So I think the poor effects, which actually weren't that bad, honestly, kind of was like, it was a benefit to the story, to the movie, instead of a hindrance.
I think I would say, though, that with Star Trek 3, it did a much better job of making the world feel real.
Oh, yeah, because I think it looked more macro.
Yeah. Were you going to say something?
Do you remember that movie we saw when we were eating at Esther? It had Tom Cruise.
Legend.
When did that movie come out?
Let's see.
Because that one feels like a real...
That one came out in 1985, so a year after Dune.
Alright.
Speaking of Legend, we should watch I Am Legend.
I Am Legend is really good.
I like that movie.
Yes, I guess that's sort of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we just shit on this movie for the last hour, but I still think it's it is one of those movies. Like, you have to watch Dune or you have to read the books at some point.
Yeah.
Just because if you're into sci-fi, that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah. I guess the last thing we usually do, it's ratings. See if we agree with them. Metacritic, it has a 40. Rotten Tomatoes at 55%. IMDb is 6.6 out of 10.
I'm curious to some of the reasoning behind their ratings.
Let me see here. I'll use
Just even one of them.
the aggregate one on Rotten
I think
Tomatoes.
around 40 is good.
Because, I mean, it scores really highly in some areas and really poorly in some others.
Yeah. It's. I think it's sort of falls in the David Lynch trap of being good style with bad substance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, I feel like the movie, even with the same actors, same everything, if they could have given it more time, I feel like it really could have been something pretty great.
Yeah. So here's Ian Nathan said from Empire, a most fascinating disaster of genre making. The New York Times says several of the characters in Dune are psychic, which puts them in the unique position of being able to understand what goes on in the movie.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the reviews are like, it's good, but it's not good.
Yeah. This is a good one from Washington Post. How maddening Dune is. As you would expect from visionary director David Lynch, it is a movie of often staggering visual power, the most ambitious science fiction film since 2001. It's also stupefyingly dull and disorderly. Dune doesn't get going till fully 2 hours have elapsed. So only... Hold on, it cut off. Okay, well, I'm not going to be able to find this.
But
yeah.
still, that sounds about right. That's accurate.
Yeah. So I guess final recommendations again.
People, they still have to watch it. You know?
Yeah. What would you rate it out of 10? How many sandworms out of 10 are we talking for Dune?
4 sandworms.
4 sandworms?
I'd say like 5, probably 5.
5.
Just because
average movie.
Yeah, I don't know. You should watch it. You might not like it, but you should watch it.
Yeah, I'd probably fall in the 4 range. Because I couldn't imagine watching this movie alone and really enjoying my time with it. I think if I hadn't been watching it with both of you, where we could laugh and we could make fun of it at the parts that were a bit more ridiculous or boring, that I think I would have kind of felt like I wasted my time on it.
I almost fell asleep at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, you have to go, if you're going to watch it by yourself, and try and take it seriously, you have to go into it with the expectation that, it's like an introductory into an era of sci-fi, and, even if you don't like the actual movie itself, you have to realize, what the actual world is.
Yeah.
Because, the movie's a shitty window into that world, but it's a good world.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a movie to watch for the filmmaking and not the film itself.
Yeah. So.
I think that's good for this episode.
Yep.
If you want to follow us, we're on SoundCloud. Gameplay's on YouTube. Still waiting on that Apple review. It's week 3 now. We'll get it. But yeah, I think that's it for Dune.
Sweet.